Fact to remember, the government is spying on us. Jim Bovar was just telling you some of the various programs. So I won't go over the details, but one thing that he didn't talk about, which I think is just hilarious, is the Total Information Awareness Program, which came out with John Poindexter, is their logo. It didn't last long because it was scary looking. It was a pyramid with an all-seeing eye on top. And out of this all-seeing eye was this yellow piercing beam that then encompassed the entire globe. Straight out of 1984, it would look good. George Orwell would have loved it. So if you want to see that again, thanks to the internet, it's never going away. You can go find that. But the worst violation of our civil liberties has been the abolition of habeas corpus. And we have some great speakers this weekend who are going to be speaking to that. Jesselyn Radick, who was involved with the John Walker Lindon case, the American Taliban. Joanne Mariner and Joseph Margulies, both involved with Guantanamo cases. Don't miss any speeches this weekend, of course, but their speeches are going to be very good. But fact to remember, habeas corpus has been abolished in many instances. There are still 355 men in Guantanamo Bay. I believe it was over 600 at one point in time. But we're coming up on 6 years now where this government has held these men without a trial. 6 years. I mean, that is a big portion of one's life, and they have not been able to have any remedy whatsoever for their detention. Two of the cases deserve quick mention. One is Shafiq Rasool. Joseph Margulies was the lead counsel in Russell versus Bush and was one of the first habeas cases to come out of Guantanamo. He was designated an enemy combatant by Bush, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in June 2004, the Supreme Court ruled that it had jurisdiction on the detainees, which was in question at that time, and that they had the right to challenge their detention. Another one is Jose Padilla, an important name to remember because he is a bit unique in that he was an American citizen detained on American soil. He was arrested in Chicago in May 2002, accused of various terrorist crimes, and he was being detained for weeks on end, and he was challenging his detention in court. And 2 days before the judge was to issue a ruling on his detention, Bush designated him an enemy combatant. And if you don't remember, being designated an enemy combatant makes you persona non grata. You have no legal rights. Your citizenship is essentially stripped. And that's what all these people in Guantanamo are. They are enemy combatants. Well, he eventually did get his trial in May 2007. But that is 5 years from the time of detention to the time of trial. An American citizen arrested on American soil sat in jail for 5 years with no remedy whatsoever. And these are things that we cannot forget. Another thing about Padilla is how he was treated there. I don't know if anybody remembers the photos that came out of him, because you didn't hear much of him, but he had to go get some dental work done. So somebody managed to snap a photo of him while he was being taken to the dentist, and when he was leaving his detention facility, he had guards all around him, and his hands were shackled, his feet were shackled. He had earmuffs on his head to block out all sound, and he had blackened out goggles put on his face to block out all light. Complete sensory deprivation. And it drove him nuts. He was treated that way for a good portion of his detention, and his lawyers found him almost useless for a defense. Well, Congress passed the Military Commissions Act in 2006 to try and address the problem of enemy combatants. The courts finally said that we've got to provide some remedy for these people. And as commonly as is described, it's a kangaroo proceeding. No civilian attorneys are allowed unless they're approved by the government. A finding of guilty only requires a 2/3 majority by a commission that's overseeing the trial. And in general, no person may invoke the Geneva Conventions or any protocols thereto on habeas corpus or other civil action. So extremely important point to remember that the government is taking away habeas corpus from us, and it must be watched diligently. So this brings me to what I consider the most important point of this conference that should be addressed and thought of by everyone here. Why were we attacked? Why were we attacked? Why did they do it to us? Why did they fly into those towers? Why did they steal those planes? Well, the Bush administration would have us believe that's because we're free. Well, extremely important point to remember, we were not attacked because of our freedoms. But he repeated it over and over again. The day of 9/11, Bush released a statement, America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon of freedom and opportunity in the world. I mean, that's just foolish on its face. I mean, who doesn't want to be free? I mean, it's inherent in everybody. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Later, in April 2002, at a Connecticut Republican committee meeting, he stated, "They hate us because we're free. They hate the thought that Americans welcome all religions. They can't stand that thought. They hate the thought that we educate everybody. They hate our freedom. They hate the fact that we hold each individual. We dignify each individual. We believe in the dignity of every person. They can't stand that." Well, it's foolish. We were not attacked because of our freedoms. And I will tell you why we were attacked. There's three main reasons. One are the trade sanctions against Iraq. After Iraq's invasion of Kuwait and at the behest of the U.S. government, the UN passed sanctions on Iraq with a full trade embargo, excluding medical supplies, food, and other items. And at the same time, during the first Gulf War, the U.S. military intentionally bombed the infrastructure of the country, and particularly their water treatment facilities, causing widespread disease. So with the combination of no infrastructure and limited food and medicines from the embargo, it was estimated that upwards of 600,000 Iraqi children died as a result. Now, there was an uproar over this. The UN Oil for Food Program Administrator, Dennis Halliday, resigned in protest. He said, "We are in the process of destroying an entire nation," and he denounced the sanctions as nothing less than genocide. And as a sidebar, the man who bombed the World Trade Center in 1993 also mentioned the sanctions in his testimony when he was tried. In 1996, then UN Ambassador Madeleine Albright was asked, "We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that is more children than died in Hiroshima. And, you know, is the price worth it?" Albright responds, "I think that is a very hard choice, but the price, we think the price is worth it." Enough to make your blood boil. I mean, every person in the Middle East heard that answer. We think it's worth it. 500,000 children died. Well, you know, it's worth it. Second reason, U.S. economic and military aid to Israel. Since the 1970s, Israel has been one of the top recipients of U.S. aid. Total aid to Israel since 1949 is over $84 billion. In addition, we have sold them multitudes of our best weapons, 50 F-15s, a couple hundred F-16s, dozens of transport planes, dozens of attack helicopters, 6,000 personnel carriers. And in 2007, we've increased our military aid to Israel by over 25% to an average of $3 billion per year. So Israel is essentially an extension of our military. They have all of our best weapons, they have our training. Now, regardless of which way you lay in regards to your position with Israel, you cannot deny the fact that Muslims in the Middle East aren't going to care for this policy too much. I mean, this is the sworn enemy of many of them, and they are the biggest recipient of money and weapons from us. Third reason, military bases in Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries as well. Saudi Arabia contains two of Islam's holiest sites, Mecca and Medina.